like FOIL as much. Teachers are getting away from that, but in some cases, it's the terminology we need. At Algebra 2, it's very specific. It only works for certain problems, so distributing is probably a better term. But to review that, let's take the example I did last block was x plus 4 times x plus 5. Because we said in lesson 15 that factoring is making a polynomial, something that's added and subtracted in algebra, algebraic expression, and make it multiplication, to where in this case we were taking out the GCF. And we're not doing any GCFs today. We're doing just specifically a very specific trinomial. So if you recall, if you call it foiling, that's the idea of taking the first one in this one and the first one in this and multiplying together. I call it distributing because I'm going to take this x and distribute it to both of them. It's the same thing both ways, because when you multiply x times x, the first two, it's x squared. If you distribute the x, you get x times x. If you call it O for outside, it's these two, but again, I'm just distributing the x to both of these. You've got to do 4 multiplications, and you need to do them in a certain order because it makes it more organized. So we're going to do this one times this, and this times this, which is 5x. And now we're going to distribute the 4. In terms of the I and the L, I is these two, which is 4x. I'm distributing the 4 to both of those. And then the L stands for the last two, which is the 4 times 5. And then if it's a nice, pretty Algebra 1 trinomial, then, or in this case, multiplying, these two will add together. They're not always that pretty in Algebra 2 and above. And you get x squared plus 9x plus 20. Now, what we're wanting to do is go backwards. I like FOIL here because I want you to recognize where this stuff comes from. The ELF, multiplying these two together, gave you this one. So going backwards, this one will give you these two. The L is these two multiplied together to where you can go backwards with it. The only problem is 4 times 5 is not the only number that's 20. So the relationship has got to come from that O and I, which is in this case the 4x and the 5x, which add together. Let's do a few. I think it'll come back to you. X squared plus 5x plus 6. We're wanting this, a trinomial in. Now, every trinomial doesn't do this. When we get to factoring on the calculator, you'll see we'll be able to tell, will this factor or will it not? And we call it factoring over the integers, that everything you put in here are integers. A 1, a 4, a 1, and a 5. Those are integers. No fractions, no decimals, no square roots, no complex numbers, anything like that. Well, if the ELF, if these two are going to give me this one, then this has got to be x and x. So we love when this is, oh, by the way, I didn't say that. We're only doing today leading coefficient of 1. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying that the number right here is a 1. See it? I'm going to put an arrow. Leading coefficient of 1 right there. The GCF on every one of these today is 1. So there's none like lesson 15. Now, we will get into them later, but right now, leading coefficient is 1. Now, remember, the last two numbers multiply to give you this number. So here, it's going to be the numbers that will give me 6. Well, what numbers will multiply to 6? That's your factor pairs we talked about the other day. 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. Now, in this case, you need to multiply to be positive and add to be positive, so we're interested in positive, positive. We love it when these are positive because everything's going to be positive. So which pair of these add to 5? 2 plus 3. I can put 2 there, 3 there, or I can put 3 here and 2 here. I can reverse it. I can put x plus 2, x plus 3, or I can do x plus 3, x plus 2. That's just the community property multiplication. A times B equals B times A. So it doesn't matter which one comes first. You just have to make sure you match up the signs right. Number 2, x squared minus 8x plus 12. Now, everything won't be x's, so use the variables they give you. Again, X squared is these two, and that's x and x. Now, when this becomes 5x squared, when this becomes 8x squared, these are going to be different. But 1 times 1, x times x is x squared. Now, we need factors that will multiply to be 12, but we've also got to consider something else. 1 times 12, 2 times 6. Write all these down. Even if you're not going to do all of them, write them all down. 3 times 4. Now, what's going to be different because this is negative? How can two numbers multiply to be positive, but when we add them together, they have to be negative? When this is a positive here, and this is a positive, well, let me say it this way. When this is a positive, your signs are going to be the same, and they're going to be whatever that is, because positive times positive, positive plus positive. In this case, you're multiplying two numbers, but you're adding them, so they're both going to have to be negative. Let's put the negatives on them. Again, that's more than you probably would in your classwork, but that's the concept behind it. Now, which three of those adds to -8? The -2 and the -6. And again, it wouldn't matter which one you would put there. And if these work, and if this works, then you're really only checking the O and I. That's -2x, and that's -6x, and they add to -8x. So you're kind of doing the FOIL as you break it down. Now, these get messier. The last two we're going to do is the toughest with the signs, but this first one's going to have some pretty easy numbers. Well, we go to the beginning. P squared, P times P. We got that. Now, how can two numbers, don't even look at that other part, how can two numbers multiply to be a negative number? One of them has to be positive, one negative. So, in this case, we don't just say it's 1 and 3. It's either going to be -1 and +3, or it's going to be +1 and -3. See, you got to consider the signs, because there's two choices, and then we've got to figure out which one of these add to be positive 2p. And that's why I don't put my signs on these. You're going to have one positive and one negative, but which way do they go? Which of these two add to +2? This one, because -1 plus 3 is +2, and +1, -3 is -2. It's always going to be a 2. One of them's the positive, one of them the negative, and we want the one that's positive. -1, +3. Let's do one more of those, and then I'll let you work on what you need to. N squared plus 2n minus 80. Now, even if you've got big numbers, you won't necessarily have to list them all. N squared, n and n. -80, so one's got to be positive, one negative. Now, I'm going to get the numbers, and then we'll get the signs. So I'm going to start little. 1 times 80. Well, there's no way that's going to give me a 2. No, because if one of them's positive and the other one negative, it's either going to be -79 or +79. That's not going to work. 2 times 40. You can't get 2 out of that. You're having to think subtraction on them. And then 3 doesn't go. 4 goes 20 times. 4 and 20 won't give you a 2. 5 and 16. Those are 11. 11 or -11. 4 and 20. Oh, I've already done that one. I'm not going up, am I? 4 of 6 won't go, 7 won't go, 8 will go, and I think that's the last one because I think they start repeating there. So 8 and 10, will they give me a 2? Now, write on your paper, -8, +10, +8, -10. Because again, that's what I make you write if you're having trouble with it. Now, we know the numbers, now which way is the sign going to go? Is it -8 and +10 or +8 and -10? -8, +10. Now, if you switch the numbers, the sign has to go with it. Over here would have to be n plus 10, and over here would be n minus 8.